Hey guys. Okay, so let me move. My screen got messed up. There we go. All right, so this video is how to mix our tertiary colors because that is all that we have left on our painted color wheel. You can totally see now how great this was from the last video. So don't be alarmed if yours looks really strange. Okay. So let's start this with our yellow-green. So that's in between our green and our yellow. And actually, I need to pause the video here because I have to go get more magazines. Hang on. Okay, so I got grab everything, all your supplies that you need to get this done. Magazine scraps to mix your colors on. Some paper towels to wipe your brush on. Like this, the brown paper towels that are over there by the sink, cup of water, your brush, and a paint palette with the primary colors on them. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the yellow-green. Now, the first thing that we have to do is to actually make the yellow-green. So I'm gonna get my paint mixing palette and I'm gonna scoop up a lot of yellow, or not a lot of yellow, but more yellow than you are blue, because we have to make it the same way. It's different than the colored pencils because we have to make our green, but we're gonna make a yellow green. So meaning it's got more yellow than it does blue, the other color that it takes to make green. So we're gonna take like a dime size amount of yellow, and then I'm gonna get a teensy amount of blue, like barely any blue. And I'm gonna start just with that and see what that does to my yellow. Mix that in, and it should give you a very nice yellowy green. If you feel like it's too green, you can always add more yellow. You can be the judge of that. But I think I did a pretty good job with mine. What's up? Okay, and then you're gonna take that and the third ring in, that's our pure hue, or our pure color. Go ahead and add that in. And I still feel like mine is too yellowy. So I'm gonna just get a smidge more blue and see if that makes a difference. It's kind of hard to judge when it's in a pile like this. Ew, what is that? Get off of my paper. Okay. Still looks really yellow for some reason. I might wait for that to dry and then put another coat of my yellow-green on top of that. But we'll see. Maybe add some more yellow to my palette. Oh, I got way too much. Oh well, I can use that in a different demo. Okay. I'm gonna go over this a little bit more. There we go. Well, it looks like that's the best that I'm gonna get. Okay, so you've got your yellow-green there. Now we're gonna make our darker value of yellow-green, and that is our shade. And we are gonna mix our shade with black. So I'm gonna rinse my brush off. I've set a little bit of that yellow-green aside. And I'm going to get the tiniest amount of black. Tiny, tiny, tiny. Just to start with. Okay. I'm going to mix that in. And this is where it's going to turn it like very greeny brown color. Very, very much so. And then paint that in to the darker area in the center for our shades. Golly, it doesn't look like I've done anything on the video, but I promise that I have. I don't know why it doesn't look any different. Again, we're not painting on the best paper, so it's absorbing the colors, and the colors look kind of weird on them on this paper, but we're doing the best that we can. Okay, now we're going to make this shade, or the tints, the lighter values of our yellow-green. So you'll get your yellow-green. I've already got it here. I might get a little bit more yellow, a little bit more blue. Kind of mix that in. Whoa, holy crap. That's way too much green. All right, hold on. There we go. Okay, so now I've got another pile of my yellow-green made, and I'm going to mix in white. So again, get all the other stuff off of my brush. I'm going to go in with some white, and then I should have my yellow-green. I'm adding in a little bit more. There we go. Okay. So now I've got my yellow-green, and this is the second ring going inwards. I'm going to paint that in just like we've done for all of our other ones. Again, doing your best to hold your brush so that you're staying inside your lines. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to take a little bit, make a new pile of yellow-green on my magazine paper, and get more white to mix in. And that's going to make that really light color. Okay, and then that's going to go here on that last outer ring. So lay in that color as evenly as you can. And then we've finished our first tertiary color. Okay, our next color that we're going to move on to, make sure you're rinsing your brush in between all of this, is our yellow-orange. So the next step is to get and make our yellow-orange. So what we're going to do is take our yellow, and you want a decent amount of yellow. Let's say about a dime-sized to a penny-sized amount. And slowly add in that red. So I'm going to start with this much red and then see where that gets me. If I feel like I need more, I can always go back and get more. But this, see, it's already perfect. So you need a very, very small amount of red to make that yellow-orange. I cannot emphasize that enough, how little amount of red that you need. And these are going to need a second coat, I think, especially the pure hue. At least for mine, because it doesn't look as good as I want it to look. Okay, now that you've painted that in, scoop out a little bit off to the side so we can mix that with our darker value, our shade of yellow-orange, and again, use a teeny tiny amount of black. You can really overdo it, so do not use too much. This is how much I got. Barely any. All right, now I'm going to mix that in and see how that looks. Again, it's going to be kind of a strange, a rusted, yellowy green look to it. Alrighty, let's see if I can make just a little bit more for a second coat, since we're starting to get into where it makes browns. This is like the start of the brown. So you want it to look more rusted than its yellow-green next to it. If it still looks the same as the yellow-green, you probably need a little bit more red maybe to mix that in. This one should be that more, these two should look different, is what I'm trying to say. For some reason I cannot talk today. Not making sense. Okay. Now that we've got that painted in, we can move on to these ones. Okay, so now we're going to make the tints, or our two lighter shades of our yellow orange. So I'm going to take some white and start to mix that into the yellow orange that I already have on my paper. And that's going to end up looking really pretty. If you feel like it's too light, just make some more orange, or make some more yellow orange and then mix that into it, okay? But it should just be slightly lighter than the pure hue. You can see here what that would look like on my paper. And then I'm going to do just more white into that same spot to make that very light, very pastel shade that goes on that outer ring. Remember, if you've got too much paint on the metal part of your brush, just wiggle your brush, spin it on the magazine paper, and then put the paint on the end or the tip of the brush. Okay, and that completes our second ring. Again, try not to go with the, I would have this video up as well as the picture of my color wheel up so that you can judge your colors based off of the photo and not this video, because this video, I feel like, is not showing you what my colors actually look like on my paper. Okay, and I'm gonna get another sheet of magazine paper. Okay, now we're gonna move on to our red orange, okay? So again, you're gonna get yellow to make orange, yellow and red. But this time you're going to get a little bit more red than you did when we made our regular orange. So I'd start with about that much of each. Now I'm going to mix those two together and see what I come up with. And that, honestly, worked out really well. It should be a very much more red version of, and this one you will need 2 layers for. So I'm going to kind of save the rest of this for that second coat on my pure hue, for my pure hue. Most of the time you need to wait for it to dry before you add that second coat. Just depends on the paper that you're working on. Okay, so now that I've made that, I'm going to make another batch of the same thing using the same ratio. So about like that to that. And I'm going to mix those in together to get my red orange. Very good. I'm going to add a third coat here so that it really looks like a red orange because it didn't earlier. All right, and then I'm going to take some of my red orange, set it off to the side, and we're going to mix the shade of our red orange. So with our black now, using tiny amount of black. So I dabbed it a lot on here. Okay, now I'm going to mix that in. It's going to be a brown color, okay? Like a rusty brown is what this should look like. Very rusty brown. Yeeks. I got too much. Okay, and mix that into that center part of the pie shape. Again, you might have to get a second coat of all of this because it is so, for some reason, it goes on so clear or light. Get some more black. Yeah, it should be a very nice, pretty brown color. There we go. Oh yeah, it definitely needed a second coat. That looks so much better. I might have to go out over some of these to make more or a second coat of all of this. Okay, so you can see there, I made my darker value or shade of red orange. Okay, now we're going to make the other two at the top, our tints of red orange. So I'm going to make, again, another batch of red orange. And once I've got that all mixed up, holy cow, that is way too much red. There we go. Okay, I've got my red orange. Now I'm going to mix in my white. I wish I was using the same paints as you guys. I think my white is more intense than y'all's, but oh well. Work with what I got. Okay, so I'm going to get some white and just start to mix that in to my red orange and see what I come up with. I feel like that is a little too light for what I'm looking for, so I'm going to try to bring in some more red orange. I really do think that my white, I've got a heavy-bodied white, which means that it's a very intense white. Okay. Getting there. Alrighty. So that's a good shade of my red orange. Now I've made a lot of paint, which I didn't really mean to do. So make sure that paint's only on the end of your brush and not all the way up the middle portion of your brush. It makes it very difficult to paint inside the lines when you've got too much paint on your brush. And it also makes it hard to paint if you don't have enough paint on your brush. Okay, so now that we've got our first medium tint of red orange, now I'm going to mix it in with even more white to make that very pastel tint of red orange. And that's going to go right here on that outer ring. And again, you can use this method that I taught you earlier in my primary color video to help you paint inside the lines. Alrighty, red orange is finished. Now we are going to move on to our red violet. So rinse your brush off really well so that you don't get any paint color contamination. And then if you need to switch palettes, get another sheet of magazine paper, you can. But we're moving on to our red violet, which is right here. Okay, so for red violet, we're going to take more red than we are our blue to make our violet, okay? I'm going to take that much, and I'm going to take about this much blue. In comparison, that's the amount of blue, this is the amount of red. Okay, we're going to start there. I'm going to see how this looks. And it looks pretty good, actually. This should look like a rusty wine color, which is a very strange mixture, but that's what it should look like. And you're going to paint that 3 rings in. And again, make sure that you've got enough paint on your brush. If you don't, you might need to add a second layer. Some of these I'm going to have to go back on and do that, but now I've got my red violet. Okay, now from there, we need to make our shade of red violet. So I'm going to take a little bit of black and mix that in with the red violet that I made. And this is going to give you a very dark, deep, reddish brown. Okay? Like if you made mixed, oh no, made a maroonish looking brown. Okay, and then you're painting that in the center, that center pie shape. Alrighty, and now from there, we are going to make the lighter shades of red violet. So I'm going to have to make another red violet here off to the side. And get some blue to mix in with my red violet. Might have used too much blue. I'm going to get a little bit more red. Here we go. Okay, now I've got my red violet. I'm going to mix my white with that red violet. And I'm just going to start with a little white, okay, to mix that in and see what that gets me. Might need a little bit more red in there. Yeah, okay. So this is my semi-lighter shade of red violet that is going to go up here. On that second rung, just like this. Okay, and then I'm going to add more white to this just around the edge, so I don't use all of that red violet, to make our very pastel colored light red violet. And that is on this outermost rung. And you can see how the paint's all clumping next to the base of my brush. I'm going to kind of wiggle around my brush like this on my paint palette and then go back and scoop it up and put it on the end of my brush. It's going to make it a lot easier to paint with when it's not all clumped up at the top. Going right to the edge. I'm going to kind of drag that brush along the edge. Doing the same thing here to help me stay inside my lines. All right, here we go. Moving right along. All right, our next color is going to be our blue violet. So rinse your brush well in between each of your colors so that they don't kind of mess up what you're trying to make. And we're going to make our blue violet, okay? So blue violet, I'm going to get some blue off of my tray here. I don't need that much blue. About like that. And then about this much red. So you can see the two on my paint palette. And mix those two together and see what you come up with. Blue is really powerful. So maybe you didn't get enough red. You can always add in more as you go. But the best way to test this is to paint like a clear coat next to it and see what it looks like. If it still just looks like blue, just keep adding little bits of red until it starts to become more, there we go, like a blue violet. It's going to be very muted, a lot like our initial violet, which is kind of a gray color. But this one's going to be tinted with blue. Okay, and then 3 rows in is where you're going to paint that. Very good, just like that. And then we're going to take a little bit of this, again, to mix with our black. I'm just going to get a little bit of black like I always do. And mix that into my blue violet, sorry. And then paint that in the center. This one is going to be very dark, probably the darkest one on the entire wheel. Alrighty. Now, we're gonna go and make the rest, which is our lighter shade. A little bit more of that blue. There we go. Okay, so now we're gonna make the lighter shades of our blue violet. So I'm gonna need to make another batch of my blue violet. So I'll go over here, get some of my blue and some red, and start with that, see where it gets me. Might not get me very far. I might need some more red. If so, just mix it in until you feel like you've got a just bluish tinted violet or bluish tinted purple, which I think I'm getting close to. I think that's about right. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of my blue violet that I've made and add a little bit of white to it and see what that does to the color. Okay, starting to look good. And it's more up to you how dark or light you want these tints to be. Just as long as the two pie shapes are different from one another, then you're good. So here's my blue violet, and it's going to look more like a very muted gray. Remember, it doesn't make that manufactured looking violet or purple. It's different. Okay, so there's my first tint of blue violet. And then I'm going to take what's left over on my brush and add in the rest of that, or more white to it to make that super pastel version of my blue violet. And paint that on this last ring on the outer edge of your pie shape. And we're almost done. We have only one more to go. So once you've got this filled in, rinse your brush really well. Again, so we don't cross-contaminate. And our last one that we're going to do is our blue violet. So, or sorry, not blue violet, our blue green. We just did blue violet. All right, so I'm going to clean off my brush real quick so that it is clean enough to work with on a new color. Throw that away. All right, now I've got a new sheet of mixing paper or mixing palette. And we're going to start making our blue-green by getting a decent amount of blue. So about like a dime size amount of blue, and then about a little less than a dime size amount of yellow. Okay, and I want to start by mixing that together and see what that gets me. It already looks really good. It's going to be dark. It's going to be like a very dark teal color. I think that's pretty spot on. Yeah. Okay, and then you're going to put that 3 rings in. Again, if the paint is all near the metal part of your brush, wiggle it off on your magazine paper and then scoop it so that it's on the end of your brush. That is always where the paint should be, never on any other portion of your brush. Okay, very good. And there is my blue-green. Okay, And from here, I'm going to take this blue-green that I have and mix a little bit of white into it, or I'm sorry, not white, black into it to create our tint or our shade of blue-green or darker version of blue-green. And test it out off to the side. There we go. Okay. So that's going to go in here in that center pie shape. Once you've mixed your blue-green, you've made more if you needed to make more, and then mixed it with just a little bit of black, a pea-size amount of black, paint that into the center. All right, now our last 2 squares. We're almost done. Curious to see how far y'all get in this in one class period, but we'll find out. Okay. And remember, if you mess up on anything, just wait for it to dry and you will be able to paint right over it. Okay, so I've got my blue-green here. And we are going to mix in some white on one side of it. Or you can just mix it all into the same thing. So I'm going to take some white, and about this much to start with. Okay, and I'm going to mix that into the center of my blue-green. This is a really pretty color. This is probably one of my favorites on the wheel. I love blue-green and like a red-orange. Those are probably my favorite. Or red-violet's really pretty too. Okay, and then that lighter shade is going to go in that second rung. I'm going to make mine just a smidge lighter than we had it earlier. And that's going to go right here on this second ring. Right, just like that. And then our last step is to add just a little bit more white to what we have to get that really nice pastel color. So I'm mixing that into my blue-green. And swirl your brush there. If you've got too much paint on the middle portion of your brush, wipe it off and get it only on the end of your brush. And then you will paint that blue-green color right along the edge in that last ring, outer ring. Okay, and then we finished it. I am definitely going to go back. You can see here, like my oranges, my yellow orange, my regular orange, even my red orange and my red, all the way, like basically from my red to my yellow to my green, all kind of need a second coat. These ones don't really. They're nice. They're dark, but these do. So I'm going to go back over those. I won't video it, so you don't have to watch me do that, but mixing them again and then just giving a second coat to each one. And then I will upload the photo of this so that you can check your values. But like I said, if you mess up on anything, just wait for it to dry completely and then paint over it. And I can't wait to see everything that you make. Good luck, guys. And I will see you back in person in 2 weeks. Oh my God. It's taking forever. All right. See ya. Bye.